I call this meeting to order at exactly 6:49. Thank you. Agenda number 2, item number 2, San Benito CISD Attendance Incentive Program overview. Who's going to do that? Luis? There he is.
Okay, all right, thank you. Good evening, Dr. Carmen, Board of Trustees, and our administration. What I'm going to present to you is the 2018-2019 attendance incentive program that we initiated this year in the district. In the beginning, in August of 2018, Dr. Carmen challenged the campus principals by challenging them to raise their attendance rates by 1%. By raising them 1%, it would increase the ADA funding and also, of course, increase the percentage for each campus, and especially looking at accountability ratings that determines that as well. So the challenge was set by Dr. Carmen to challenge each principal to meet at least a 1% increase in their attendance. In doing so, the incentive was to go ahead and, in turn, the campus would raise their attendance accordingly, and a financial incentive would be provided on a basis of every 6 weeks. The chart, and I'll show it to you in just a moment, each 6 weeks, each campus was given their percentage each 6 weeks so that they knew what their target goal was going to be for each 6 weeks and also per campus. By doing so, by 1%, raising the attendance by 1%, he challenged them and told them he would pay out $5 if they met the 1%. $5 per student would give them an incentive for the 6 weeks period. If we look at the formula that's in front of you in the handout and on the PowerPoint, the formula was taking the percentage raised times a dollar amount times the campus enrollment would give them the total of the incentives funded for that 6 weeks for that campus. It was an initiative that was set up per campus and also per 6 weeks. So it wasn't a one-time initiative. It was a initiative to be met every 6 weeks. The chart that's provided there shows you what we went back and looked at also was looking at the 1%, and we said, well, we'll go ahead and we'll change that to having a 0.5 point% all the way up to a 1% increase. So we created a chart that shows if you had a 0.5 point percentage increase, you would get a $250 per student during that period. Wow. And the chart goes to 0.6, 0.7, 0.8, 0.9, and eventually the 1 point would be the maximum, and that would be a payout of $5. The next chart, I'm sorry, what happened here? The next chart is the actual challenge that Dr. Carmen provided to them. That is each campus per 6 weeks, and this was based on the 2017-2018 attendance figures for each campus. The numbers you see there are 1 point increases for each campus per 6 weeks. So they knew exactly what their target was going to be for every 6 weeks. Looking at the conversion of the actual incentive, this is the first, I showed you the first 6 weeks and how we calculated the first 6 weeks. And we look at, of course, the 1 point goal. The first column is the campuses that met, the 1 point goal, and then the 0.5 goal, and then the actual goal is in yellow. So looking at La Paloma did meet a 98.2, and that was their actual percentage that they met for that 6 weeks, which showed it a 0.7% increase at 350. And you look at the number of students that were enrolled at the time, gave us 515 students. So we applied that formula of the percentage raised, dollar amount, to equal times the number of students per campus, and that gave them $1,802 for the incentive for that 6 weeks. We go down to Dr. Garza, same thing. The percentage is shown there, the conversion factor of the dollar amount, the amount of students, and that gave them $2,368.
Great.
Looking at Riverside, also, they showed the percent increase plus the number of students, gave them that amount. And then San Diego High School, they met at a 6%. Of course, they have 2,132 students, so their allotment would be a lot more based on the number of students. So they qualified for 6,396 based on that one for 6 weeks.
So in the first 6 weeks, only 4 campuses met the goal?
Yes.
Okay.
The percentages were 1.5. to 1%. So those were the 4 campuses that met that initiative and were paid out accordingly. The trend that I like to note there is that there were those 4 campuses in particular maintained and were very, they were awarded very frequently. They were the top earners, so to say.
Wow.
The San Benito High School met 4 times, Riverside met 4 times, San Benito Garza Academy, STEAM Academy met 5 times, and La Paloma met 3. Later on in the chart, in the presentation, it shows the chart exactly how many times each campus met the incentive challenge and how much dollar amount they received as well. But what's interesting here is that those 4 campuses that met the first challenge the first 6 weeks eventually were the top 4 campuses that met the incentive for the entire year. The campuses that met the attendance incentive per 6 weeks, I created a chart that shows you exactly that. If you look at the first 6 weeks, those were the 4 campuses mentioned that met. Second 6 weeks, we had a few more campuses added to that list, and you see those check marked there. The interesting column is the third 6 weeks, where every single campus met the incentive on a 0.5 to a 1 point scale. And so that was very exciting for every campus because every campus was working towards that. Some campuses before that were very near it, but they didn't meet the 0.5 increase. But we were very elated, and campuses were elated that they did meet and had some kind of incentive provided to their students. So that was a challenge, a great challenge, and they met that challenge there in the third 6 weeks. 4 6 weeks, we had a good number of campuses as well. There were not all of them, but they were our second group, highest group of 6 weeks. Then we came across the fifth 6 weeks. Fifth 6 weeks, no campus met the 0.5 to 1 point challenge. Factored in there, and you can look at all the factors that were taking place at the time. One was spring break. That's the six weeks during spring break. Traditionally, we have students that leave early, or they leave a few days early, or they come back a few days after spring break. During that time, out of season was a cold weather. We had a longer cold period, and we tend to have students who during cold weather time, especially when it's really cold in the 40s, we have parents that tend to keep our students back during that time. So we were experiencing that. Some campuses also expressed that they were experiencing flu and cold season. So we were really hit with a lot of factors in the fifth 6 weeks, so our attendance did not hit the 0.5 at any campus district-wide. The sixth 6 weeks is also very interesting because the sixth 6 weeks, we only used 3 weeks out of the 6 weeks. One of the proposals that I had asked Dr. Carmen is for us to look at only a 3-week period. One, because we would need to shorten the 6 weeks so we can ensure who met the challenge, and that way we can get the incentives out to the students before school let out. If we had done the whole 6 weeks, then obviously we would not have known what campuses would have qualified until after the year ended, and then we would have had to reward the students either during the summer or at the beginning of the school year. So we agreed to a 3-week period. During that 3 weeks, we looked at not a 6 weeks comparison to 2017, 2018, but we looked at the 3 weeks for that period, same period for this year. So we didn't penalize, or we didn't, we made the same comparison for the number of weeks there. So it was a very fair comparison, and so 4 campuses met there. If you look at the chart, again, the campus that met the most was Dr. Garza's STEAM Academy. Do want to mention there that that is a school of choice, and I truly believe that one of the reasons why they did meet the incentive so many times and they increased their number for the whole year was because it was a school of choice. With most of those students there were chosen or was selected to go there, and one of the criteria was that they needed to maintain good attendance in order to maintain their enrollment there. So looking at that, and hopefully if our 2 other school of choices that are being introduced next year, hopefully that trend will continue at Ed Downs Fine Arts Academy and at Sullivan's Environmental Science Academy, and we'll have those 2 campuses grow along with hopefully Dr. Garza's STEAM Academy will continue that trend. So just very interesting that the school of choice did show a significant amount of increase in attendance. Of course, the other areas, the other schools that did meet it was Riverside Middle School, where they met 4 times. San Benito High School met 4, and then there was a few that were at 3. But in particular, La Paloma did maintain that, which was one of the original 4 that met in the first 6 weeks.
I noticed on the third 6 weeks, everybody made it. What time of the year was
The fifth 6
that?
weeks?
The third?
The third, everybody met in the third 6 weeks.
What was the calendar date there? Do you-
I know that was during the period of Thanksgiving, was between Thanksgiving
the
and right
November, October,
after
November.
Christmas. I think it was Thanksgiving, the week after Thanksgiving, on through December and into January was the third 6 weeks.
It ends with the Christmas break. It ended in December with the Christmas
Okay,
break.
okay. Yeah, yes, that's right. Then the very interesting chart here is the actual dollar amounts that were paid out to each campus. What I did here was list each campus that did meet according to their criteria per 6 weeks, and I actually plugged in the the amount of incentives that were paid out to each campus. On the chart, one of the things I failed to do was add the total down so that you could see per 6 weeks will be paid out. But in particular, the third 6 weeks where everybody met, that's where we paid out almost $50,000 just in that 6 weeks because everybody met. So I know that was a number for sure. But if you go across and look at by row, by campus, you'll see the amount that each campus received based on their meeting the challenge for those 6 weeks. And so if you look at the total amount, going all the way down, of course, San Benito High School met 4 times, and since they have the largest amount of students, they had the largest payout at $35,898. But you also look at Riverside Middle School, which also has around 600-700 students. Their payout was $11,000. And then, of course, Dr. Goddard met 5 times, so they had a payout of over $10,000 there. Everyone else was in the single thousands. But you look at the grand total down there in the bottom, and we paid out to all campuses for all 6 weeks was $114,400, which is amazing. And I want to add a little something there. Oh, I keep going back there. I want to add a little something there. This is the first year that district-wide that I know of, that I've been part of attendance department, that we have had this kind of initiative paid out to our campuses. I know that some campuses are budgeted perfect attendance for some campuses, but to pay out in particular for this and to make it an initiative for students and for the staff, this is the first time we've done this, and this is amazing. The vision that Dr. Carmen had and the board, of course, the support, and looking at, later on you're going to see pictures of students engaging and receiving their gifts, but $114,000 is a lot, and I will go over a couple of numbers later on about how that impacts 88. The next chart here shows you the actual percentage compared to last year to this year. And we do show, if you look at the last column where it says percentages, I highlighted the 3 schools that met higher than a 0.5. And so we do have Dr. Raul Garza STEAM Academy that met at a 1.2%, increase 1.2%. That was the highest of all schools. Then we have La Paloma, which is at 1.6. And then we have Riverside Middle School, which increased by 0.8. So those are significant numbers there. You look at the number of positives, there's a majority of the positives, or majority of the campuses were positive in increasing their attendance by at least a 1/10 of a point. We have a couple of campuses that were down maybe a 1/10 of a point, maybe less or 2/10 of a point. So that's very good news looking at that. We look at the grand total compared to last year. Last year, the district had a 94.7, and this year, the estimation or the numbers that we received and ran, we should have a 95.0, which is a 0.3% increase. So it's good to show the increase there. I do want to note that the percentage there is looking at the 16 campuses that we provided incentives to. Those were the 2 secondary or 2 high schools, the VMA and San Diego High School, 3 middle schools, and the 11 elementaries. We did not include the alternative schools in the incentive program. But of course, if you run the district attendance for all the campuses, the number is going to be a little bit different than this, but this is just looking at the sampling of those 16 schools. So you do have a 0.3% increase there, which is great.
Do you know what the variance is between this number and the number we send to TEA?
I know this number here, is looking at the 16 campuses, and I know that, and this is taken from the Skyward State Reporting ADA report. That's the one we generate in order to come up with these percentages. But when we look at that, I guess we look at the schools that are included in the accountability, and that would include some of our alternative schools. I think a couple of our alternative schools are in that mix.
Don't we have that total number for the full
Just
district?
gonna, think you ask what we get paid on. This is 6 out of the 6 weeks. The percentage is a little less because we're dividing it. We get the best 4 weeks, and that is what we get paid for. So right now, that's standing over really 0.5%. So that 6 weeks, that was the fifth 6 weeks, and that is not one that is considered in our funding. And on the sixth 6 weeks, we had to cut it short to make sure that we get the prizes out for them. So it was a prorated. So for the attendance, this is a combination of all of the 6 weeks. What we actually got paid on is higher because we get the best 6 weeks that we got, and it's about 0.5%. And just to throw it in there, we also did an incentive, the car, which is the grand. I say in the presentation, but that was also part of this incentive for the high school that I think had an impact in.
But do we have
in-
that actual number that? we got
Funding
paid on?
wise?
Yeah,
Or-
the final number that we reported to the state.
Not right off with me, but that's what we're using for us for the budget.
Right.
Yes.
And that's what I want to know.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know that PEEMS will do their summer submission, and a lot of that information will go into that figure. So when you look at this number here, the 16 campuses, that's just based on those 16 campuses. But it shows positive, and I did run the report of all the campuses, and it still shows a positive percent increase. So it looks good. So in closing, or looking at the actual comparison, 2017 to 2018, the district attendance rate was at 94.7. Again, this is looking at the 16 campuses comparison. The 2018-2019 attendance rate, which is the one we just closed, was at a 95.0%. And those, of course, were also the 16 campuses that were compared. Estimated increase is a 0.3 for when we look at the years and the 2 years, and we will look at the campuses that were included in that sample. The highlights that we can look at, of course, is a 3% increase, which is estimated to be, again, $250,000 to $300,000 in ADA funding for the district for 1920. Again, this is just an estimation. This also doesn't include the other funding factors like your special education students, other students that increase or add to our ADA. But this is just looking at an estimation, just looking at a 3% increase. It ranges between $250,000 to $300,000, so which is a good for the district because that's what's additionally going to come into our district. The total amount paid in the incentives, again, was $114,400. So we just look at the amount that we may be receiving for next year. It was less than half, or looking at half of what we actually paid out this year. So we're not losing money, but we're investing into our students and providing that incentive so that, again, attendance rates go up, interest in school goes up, and maybe even enrollment from other districts goes up. The immeasurable impact to students and families, again, that was one of the 6 weeks. That was the third 6 weeks where we had to buy a mass amount of products for our students. And so this was our storage area at the old Nino's building at Landrum. So it was full of bicycles. We thought we were going to have enough bicycles, but we had to go back and buy more. So again, we also have to look when we were purchasing these items, because what we would do is we would purchase the items for the campuses, and we would have to take into account the grade levels, the ages, the genders. So there was a lot going into purchasing a lot of these bicycles, ordering them, having them assembled, having them transported, and then having them transported to the campus. So, but again, when you see the faces of children receiving these gifts, they were, it all pays off. These were some of the sports items that we also purchased as well. We purchased electronic equipment. We purchased speakers, Bluetooth speakers. We kind of heard from the students who actually want, or what is the trend, or what is the wish list that they wanted to have. A lot of it was the Nintendo Switches, the Beat headphones, just everything trending out there with students. We tried, of course, some of them were high ticket items, so we would have to look at purchasing some of the high ticket items and then some of the lower, just so that we can spread the wealth and have enough for everybody. Because those Nintendo Switches can be $399 each, so that can quickly take the budget, or take the amount away for the entire budget for the campus. Again, this is one of the campuses that celebrated their attendance incentives, passing them out or distributing them to those students. They would look into who during that 6 weeks met the perfect attendance definition. They would invite them to assemblies, and then they would distribute the items to the students. This is Dr. Garza. This is where some of the students, again, they purchased. When purchasing these items, we also had to take into account pre-K all the way to 5th grade. That's a big age group there, multiple interests, again, gender also. So we had to really investigate and really research what is it that students want. A lot of them, they were just happy to receive whatever they got. But of course, some of them wanted those high ticket items. Here again, smiles on students receiving something for their hard work and making sure they were there every day. Piano, keyboards, anything that students, felt that they wanted to take home that they may not have gotten for Christmas, or it was just part of their wish list. So we tried to do that. And again, that's the closing, the smile on the student receiving her Barbie headphones. I would like to just close by saying that I did this presentation, a shorter version of this presentation at the Region 1 at a conference, at a parent conference, and at a family and community engagement conference of staff members from across Region 1. And I would like to say that the sessions were very well attended. Sometimes attendance is not one of those topics you want to hear, but I invited everyone to attend, and our sessions were full. I can tell you from across the valley, there was employees in districts that were going to go back and talk to their superintendents, their board members, because they wanted to see something like this happen in their district. There is some districts that are doing this. There's Mission ISD that's doing an incentive, something like this, but not to the degree of payout and the expectation as well. Other campuses, other districts are also doing some form of attendance incentives. I know Edinburgh and Wesco are doing principal dinners. So at the end of the week, those who met perfect attendance for the week, principals would purchase a couple of pizzas and drinks and then go to the home and deliver them to that student who was picked randomly from that perfect attendance pool. And so that was exciting for them, because the principal got to go to their house to have dinner. So just little things like that could be something that we could add to this. Like I said, sometimes those little small things add up to big things, especially for some students who don't receive anything at all. So I think that would be something to look at next year. I know we're meeting at the district level. We had a meeting about 2 weeks ago to discuss with principals what some of their ideas are and what we need to look at. And we're going to meet again next week to close out and propose to Dr. Carmen what are some of the things we'd like to see her for year 2. We also will look at how we're going to purchase the items, how we can do it quicker, faster, and more accessible to our students and to our campuses. That way the students get to enjoy their prizes right as soon as they get to qualify for them. So that's our program as of this year. Again, thank Dr. Carmen for that, the campus principals for being patient, the administration for also being very supportive. Again, it was an initial year, so there was growing pains going along the way, but we met it at the end of the year, and again, with the reaction of students and families was priceless.
Awesome. I do have a couple of comments. Obviously, there's a lot to celebrate here. There's a lot of great things happening. Kids are excited. Staff's excited. Just one big observation, and I think that has to do with this idea of equity. I noticed that a lot of our campuses, which have traditionally struggled, did not receive a lot of those payouts. And I think there's, and I'm going to name one that was Frank Roberts, Fred Booth, Angela Leal, schools that have typically either academically, socioeconomically been at the bottom of the totem pole, didn't really enjoy this either. So again, just an observation. Again, it's the first year we're doing this. They're growing pains, but it goes to, I think, a larger question of how we are or are not supporting these campuses that actually need our help. And you hit the nail right on the head when you talked about the Dr. Raul Garza STEAM Academy, as they received over $10,000 for those kids. But again, it's a school of choice versus resources that are not going to campus like Frank Roberts, where those students there probably need it most. And again, I'm not talking to you
Right.
specifically, but just in general about this program, I think we need a larger kind of conversation about what this does and doesn't do for certain students. But good job, though.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Yeah, first of all, Dr. Carmen, Luis, great presentation. Great job. Dr. Carmen, I want to thank you for this. This is awesome. I think this is a great learning tool for all of us. And like Michael said, it is showing the areas where, we're exposing the areas that need some help. And I think that's one of the things that this board brings to the table is supporting Dr. Carmen and administration and all you wonderful people and staff that work here, is that together we can accomplish a lot of great things. And I think this is a great tool. I think also what we need to do, Luis, moving forward, I'm more sure we probably have that information, but we need to see where we compare ourselves with our neighboring districts, okay? We try to be, of course, equitable when it comes to, paying our staff and so on and so forth, but also I think this is a great tool for our parents to know that we are giving back to the kids, rewarding them for coming to school and so on and so forth, so they can understand the, the financial implications of, of public school and how the system works. But I want to thank Dr. Carmen and the staff and everybody else for such a wonderful, successful school year. Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it. Thank you, appreciate it, thank you. Okay, thank you, good night.
Okey dokey. Next item. Review, discussion of the San Benito CISD Elementary and Secondary Discipline Matrix Plan for the 2019-2020 school year.
Good evening, Dr. Carmen and fellow board members. The rationale for this presentation is to implement a San Benito CISD Discipline Matrix Plan for the year 2019-2020 in a constant effort to bring about consistency in the administrative action taken at the campus level. You should have a copy of the Elementary Discipline Management Plan for the matrix. We spent several days, the administrative staffs from the elementary campuses. And as you see there right before you on the left-hand side, it has level 1 offenses with the subtitles of disregard for authority, mistreatment of others, possession of prohibited items. On the second page, it says possession of telecommunications or other electronic devices, illegal prescription over-the-counter drugs, miscellaneous. And then on the right-hand side, you have the level 1 disciplinary options. We had many in-depth conversations with administrative staff trying to come to an agreement or a consensus on how they were going to administer administrative action according to the offenses on the left-hand side. If you go to the third page, I believe it says techniques. These are going to be like some interventions that they all agreed upon. It says the following discipline management techniques may be used alone in combination or as part of progressive interventions for behavior prohibited by the student code of conduct on the campus or classroom rules. Verbal correction, oral or written, cooling off time or on timeout, seating changes within the classroom or vehicles owned and operated by a district, temporarily confiscation of items that disrupt the educational process, behavioral contracts, anger management counseling, classroom circles, and family counseling. And at the bottom there, we have some stars there. The violation can be both level 1 ISS, level 2 DAEP, PRC, depending on the severity. And we have known upon board approval, corporal punishment may apply. So that's, in essence, the elementary matrix. If you go to the next 2 pages, it has to deal with some laws as far as administering administrative action at the elementary level. It says there, elementary out-of-school suspension, the school district should not use out-of-school suspension for students in grade 2 or below unless the conduct meets the requirements established by law. A student in grade 2 or below shall not be placed in and out of school suspension unless while on school property or while attending a school-sponsored, school-related activity on or off school property the student engages in the following conduct that contains the elements of a weapons offense as provided in Penal Code, Section 4602 and 4605. Conduct that contains the elements of assault, aggravated sexual assault as provided by the Penal Code, or selling, giving, or delivering to another person, or possessing, using, or being under influence of any amount of marijuana or alcoholic beverage or any controlled substance or dangerous drug as defined by the federal or state law. The district shall use a positive behavior program as a disciplinary alternative for students in grade 2 or below who commit general conduct violations instead of suspension or placement in DAP. The program will meet the requirements of the law. And then it says their disciplinary alternative education program, DAP placement, from kindergarten through 5th grade, as required by Texas, the TAC, Administrative Code 103.1201, H1. The district may separate elementary students from secondary students in the DAP setting. A student who expelled for an offense that otherwise would have resulted in DAP placement does not have to be placed in a DAP in addition to the expulsion. And in deciding whether to place a student in DAP, regardless of whether the action is mandatory or discretionary, the campus behavior coordinator shall take into consideration self-defense, intent or lack of intent at the time the student engaged in the conduct, the student's disciplinary history, a disability that substantially impairs the student's capacity to appreciate the wrongfulness of the student's conduct. And then also, the students under age of 10, the law regarding young student is as follows. Students under age 6 cannot be placed in DAP unless they commit a federal arms offense. And students between 6 and 9 years of age who commit expellable offenses listed in Education Code 37.007 may not be expelled and must be placed in DAP. Like I said, we did spend time together as an administrative staff. This is something that we came up with, and we're looking forward to your approval. Anybody have any questions on the elementary one?
Ms. Silva, Mr. Vargas, Board, the reason we had come up with this and I'd suggested to Mr. Saldana that he meet with the principals is because there were many campuses, especially at the secondary, that there were differences, discrepancies, whatever word you want to use, from campus to campus. Yes, we do believe in autonomy. However, we do believe in fairness, and that if an offense is taking place at one campus, it should be similarly disciplined at all campuses. And there were some differences. I know that Mr. Saldana gave you a handout that shows those differences on the campuses. And we just want to make sure that there wasn't a disproportionate amount of placements. This has to do, the whole matrix came to do with because of the amount of placements at PRC from some of the campuses where there may be a greater enrollment at another campus with a lesser percentage of students going to PRC. And to discuss the discretionary and mandatory placements at PRC.
Yes, sir, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
So, explain us a little something. So what do you, I mean, I know you guys broke it down, but apparently, there's some issues.
Yes, sir,
Like-
there are
like it-
some issues, and I think,
Like, for example, there's fights. That's the first thing that comes to mind in all three of the middle schools. So my question is it something that, is it a lack of support of security, lack of support of, or additional staffing in those areas? So the kids know that they can't get away with that type of behavior? Or is it, because it seems to be consistent?
yes, sir, that was one of the areas that we, and I know Mr. Saldana has been in contact with the principals, and I've been in contact with the principals to make sure that what one campus is considering a fight is a fight,
Okay, I
not,
get
I rub up against your shoulder and I'm suspending you for accidentally running
Right.
into somebody and calling that a fight.
Okay.
So we've had those discussions. I know Mr. Saldana has with the principals and the APs and the assistant principals, just so that we can minimize, not saying that we're gonna discount, but if there is a call for discipline, we will address that issue, but we're not gonna go out and look for issues.
Correct, 'cause I know, previously we had discussed, the high volume of PRC prior. So this is not something new. We're hearing it again. So I think, then we need to break it down. I think honestly, whether it's in the lunch period, is it before school, after school? Because I know there was could be some type of,
Well, what we're hoping to, when we get to the secondary level one, which is next, it'll talk about some of the interventions that we're hoping to, or will be put in place this year, that hopefully we can address the high areas of concern. And I've also spent time talking to Mr. Madrigal as to what other inventions we can put as a school district. But of course, that's another critical conversation we'll have with our administrative staff, counseling department, PD, and see what best plan of action we can put in at every campus to try to minimize those numbers to PRC.
right, because I just want to reiterate back to our parents, that their kids are attending a safe school, and we're doing everything that we can as adults here and decision makers to make sure that they are protected here and make sure that we're providing all the necessary tools so they can be in a safe environment.
Yes, sir. Basically, the data that you received on that PowerPoint slide that you have copies, those are like our major categories, and we will go over that data again and see what plan of action we can come in to try to minimize as many of those occurrences at the secondary level.
Yeah, Mr. Sullivan, before you go on, I just want to answer the first question from Mr. Lopez about the number of security.
Yes, sir.
We have compared our numbers, and the number of security guards that we have based on our enrollment is one of the highest ratios of security guards to students, not just in the valley, but in the state. And we continually compare ourselves to the three districts that are closest, but in that aspect, we are well-staffed in that area.
Okay, great. Okay, that was just one of my concerns, and then also, for us to somehow, expose these plans out of some type of intervention that we are, keeping our kids safe. I think it's very, very important, because I think this past year, we saw one of our campuses, our middle school campus or the high school, there was a couple of, instances there where, we got some negative publicity there on a continuous days. So, it doesn't, shed good light on the district, but we need to shed this light here, what we're doing to make sure that these kids, moving forward are gonna be protected, and we're gonna do everything that we can to protect
Yes,
them.
sir. I think one of the things that we implemented was that Stop It app, and we have gotten some communication from parents that helped us stop some occurrences or incidents from happening, especially the last week of school. So that in itself helps us be proactive, come up with a plan of action, and we were able to make sure that nothing happened at those campuses that we were sent messages on the Stop It app. So I think in itself, that is another way that we're using another intervention to maximize our efforts to promote safety at our district.
Sure, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Five, Taro.
That's what we have.
So what happened to those kids?
You want to explain those, Scott, that maybe they were,
Out of
Yes,
curiosity, I'm
ma'am,
just wondering.
that was similar to like what you read in the newspaper that happened at a different school district, or it happens from time to time, kids may call in a threat, and we find out who it
yeah,
is.
that's-
That's
I see,
what it is.
okay.
It's not
that's what, yeah.
unique to San Benito. But we do, and we
Because
follow
I don't
the,
remember.
yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank
Yes,
you.
but it's not the other kind that you.
Okay.
This is us.
Well, I said, huh?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
The next one is the secondary discipline management plan, and it's on the same lines as the other one. We have the subtitles there, treatment of others, and the days that we recommend to PRC, 10 days, 20 days, 30 days. The 10 days was moved down from 15 to 10 in an effort to make sure that our kids stay at their home campuses or get back to their home campuses as soon as possible. On the bottom, you also see another list of interventions that can be and will be utilized prior to recommendation for PR placement, verbal reprimand, confiscation of an item, behavioral contract, loss of privileges, telephone call, no to parent or parent conference, change of seat assignment, exclusion of extracurricular activities, in-school suspension, out-of-school suspension, and we have that going all the way to the third full page with another list of offenses that are there, prohibited possession or prohibited items, and then we have illegal prescription over-the-counter drugs, and then we get to the misuse of technology, resources, and the internet. And then we go to safety transgressions, and then we get to miscellaneous offenses. So, in essence, we're hoping that you all will look at this and approve it, and so we can start meeting with our assistant principals and principals to make sure that we all follow this and we're more consistent in the administrative action taken at all of our campuses. Do you have any questions? Thank you. Thank you, Scott. The next one is, go ahead.
Excuse me. Review and discussion of the student handbook for the 2019-2020 school year.
Okay, I believe you all have a copy of the handbook. Pretty much, there was some minor changes, maybe about 10 changes, pretty much the same every year. Some of the changes was take a word out here, add another word here, just it's minor stuff, wasn't anything major. So it's very time-consuming anyway to go through it, but we were able to put it together. So that's what we're turning in as per what's sent to us from the model from the state, and we implement what they recommend. And so that's what's before you right now. Does anybody have any questions?
No, thank you. Agenda item?
Thank you.
Now we have committee concerns, Mr. Madrigal. Or EMS, Los Fresnos and Port Isabel. Excuse me.
Yes, ma'am. We are asking that you please accept, approve this MOU affiliation agreement between our district and these two EMS services. These services are the companies that provide our students the opportunities for ride-alongs while they're doing their hours, when they're completing their EMS certifications, either on the weekends or during holidays, when they work at their 12-hour shifts. We've done this, we did it last year, and we just ask that y'all please, on both the Port Isabel and the Los
Los
Fresnos,
Fresnos.
that's what both of them are.
Okay,
There's no difference, no change from last year.
okay. So would this be an agenda item then? Okay. Committee concerns. I have two. Okay? They have approached me about a stipend for the Junior Honor Society. These ladies or these gentlemen are not getting paid a stipend. Is there any way we can find something for them somewhere and give them something for their effort and doing such a wonderful job with these kids?
So what we do when there are requests for stipends, we compare to area districts to determine if that is a stipend that is a normal stipend, and if so, what the amounts are. So we can certainly have that information by the time we bring the compensation plan on the 27th of this month.
That's okay. And also, another question was asked by the teachers. They were being asked at the middle schools about an ESL certification. They have to take this test and they'll get reimbursed. If they have to pay a $200 fee. And what they want to know is if they do not pass the test, of course, they don't get their money back, but if they do, they get reimbursed. But are they going to be moved about within the school, within the area? They want to know what's going to happen to them.
Yeah, so there was a new state requirement that we're trying to meet this year. Mr. Madrigal, you want to try to explain it, or should we have Dr.
Quesada's
Quesada?
not here. I believe that in all core areas, they had to be ESL certified, and we were trying to get our teachers either on a permit, and they can apply for a permit that's good for 1 year, and within that 1 year, so that they, if they have kids that meet those qualifications, we'd be in compliance. But we do provide the training, do the paperwork for them, either in HR or through the bilingual department to send off for their permit through the state. And I think it's 3 Saturday trainings that get them prepared for the test, and at which time they take the test. If they do pass the test,
Oh, okay. So
they
you have to
are reimbursed the cost
I
of the
see.
test, correct?
train.
The Bilingual department is providing the payment for the attendance of those trainings.
Oh,
So
so,
that is paid
okay.
for. They just need to communicate with that office and,
Okay, that was the next question I was gonna ask. They wanted to know, because I think they said
Yes.
that last year they paid for it, or the school paid for it, and they did get reimbursed.
Yes.
Okay. All righty, thank you so much. I guess, can we make the stipend an agenda item or not? Are we gonna have the, okay. All righty then. Any more questions, any committee concerns other than mine? No? Okay, we adjourn at exactly 7:34. Thank you.